content. Just by way of introduction for those who may not be familiar fully with Soapbox Engage and all that it contains, Soapbox Engage is an online suite of apps that allows you as a nonprofit to engage with your supporters and donors online through a number of different ways. And those ways are represented by our 7 different apps. The first is our donations app. That's what we're going to be discussing here in great detail with the peer-to-peer fundraising add-on for our donations app. We also have an event registration app, a forms app where you can easily create forms through clicks, not code, that push data to Salesforce. We have a directories app that searches and displays data from Salesforce, a shop e-commerce app, and then 2 online advocacy apps. One is a petitions app, and then the other is a Write Your Rep app that we call Actions, that allows you to create various advocacy actions and encourage folks to complete those to contact targets that you specify. In addition to all of those apps, we have an option to add on a portal service for your Soapbox Engage site that essentially allows for people to come create a login account for your site, and that login can be connected with a contact in Salesforce. As you might guess from my repeated mentioning of Salesforce, all of these apps are designed to integrate with the Salesforce Constituent Relationship Management tool. So we are going to be focused during this webinar on not just donations, but the peer-to-peer fundraising aspect of our donations app. This webinar is part of a number of webinars that we give throughout the course of any given month that are app specific. So at any given time, if you go to soapboxengage.com/events, you'll see webinars for the donations app in general, our events app, any number of these apps that are listed here, as well as spotlight webinars that we offer one a month that focus on fundraising strategy and how you can get the most out of the Nonprofit Success Pack in Salesforce for your fundraising efforts. The next spotlight webinar is actually tomorrow at 3 p.m. We're going to be talking about the new tax law and the implications it has on smart fundraising strategy for this year. So if that's of interest to you, feel free to go ahead and register for that after this training webinar. We are going to jump into now specifics for that peer-to-peer fundraising offering. As noted, peer-to-peer fundraising is an add-on for our base donations app. And what it allows you to do is create, or is to amplify any one of your donation app forms within Soapbox to make it peer-to-peer enabled. So in this particular case, we've got an instance of one peer-to-peer fundraising form that's been created as part of a given campaign. And we'll be walking through the steps of how this form can be created, both from the end user's perspective and then from your perspective as an administrator of your Soapbox Engage site. So here we have, as we scroll down, a title for this peer-to-peer donation form, an image that was uploaded by this fundraiser. This happens to be my wife and baby boy. You may see him a couple more times throughout the demo. There is a goal that's been identified by this fundraiser of $2,000. They just got this out the door and published, so there's been no donations so far and no supporters. There is an appeal message that is customizable by your fundraiser, and then a number of details further down the page here that you control as an administrator for whether or not the form is going to accept just one-time gifts or monthly gifts, what sort of way those options are presented to the end user. In this particular case, it's by a toggle here, so only the amount for monthly or one time is displayed at any given moment. That could be different, that could be stacked, so you always have both of them showing. You can have a default of monthly as opposed to one time, so that is selected at the beginning. We're going to talk through how you can make that possible for a given donation form. We've got the contact information here that can be customized, and again, we'll touch on how to do that within the administrator, as well as a couple of fields where you can, number one, ask your donor if they want to receive your newsletter, and then why they're choosing to support this campaign. We've got the ability to turn on or off a dedication for this donation, and then the form itself where folks provide their payment information. Going further down, we'll see that we also have the possibility of listing supporters here. Since this donation form is brand new for this fundraiser, there are no supporters yet. We'll see what this looks like, though, when we look at a couple of other examples. So we'll be walking through, again, how you can have your front-end donors create, or front-end supporters create these peer-to-peer fundraising pages, as well as how you can enable this functionality for a given donation page in the administrator. I'll pause one moment here before we jump into those items, just to say that if folks have questions that come up as we roll through the presentation here, feel free to use the chat window in your GoToMeeting console there and toss that question into me, and I'll do my best to respond to that. So moving on to what this experience is like for individuals that come to your site and want to become a fundraiser. Here we have an example of the main landing page for this particular peer-to-peer fundraising campaign. In this instance, the administrator has elected to make this page extremely basic. It's just the title of the page and then this very short appeal with a Start Fundraising button. There are a number of ways that you as an administrator can customize this view, both in terms of the title, in terms of the appeal text, or the text of the button, and then, if you wish, you can also make it so that the donation form itself appears on this page. So if you want folks to come to this particular URL to either donate to the overarching campaign or to become a fundraiser, you can display that form here. You can also choose to display the list of supporters for this campaign on this page, just like we saw on that initial example that we showed. Now, if I want to go ahead and create a fundraising page, what I can do is just click Start Fundraising. I'm actually going to open this in a new browser because I'm logged in currently in the other one and already have a fundraising page. So if we navigate over here, we'll see the same page. And actually, I'm just going to make sure that, yep, we're still showing this as the screen sharing. So if I click that, it gives me the option to go ahead and register on the site. So as a new individual creating a new fundraising page, I can go ahead and just put in my first name, last name, provide a username, an email address, and then my password here. If this is not my first fundraising page that I'm creating, let's say I've created one as part of another peer-to-peer campaign for this organization on this site, I could just go ahead and click log into your account. That will present me with the login page, and I can simply access my account and move along in the process. In our particular example, we'll go back to the registration form, and we'll just say we're avid supporter and we'll go ahead and register. Once that's been done, there's a couple things that happen here. The first is we get this notice that an account has been created and an activation link has been sent to that email address that was provided. This individual will need to activate their account by clicking that link before their fundraising page is fully public. But in the meantime, they can go through creating that fundraising page. So what we have here is the title that is defaulted, as with all of these other options, by the administrator. So you as an administrator can define what the default title, what the default appeal, goal, and default photo is that you want for these peer-to-peer fundraising pages. But then your individual fundraisers can go ahead and customize that themselves. We're going to go ahead and say that we're extremely optimistic and we have a goal of raising $10,000. If we click upload, we can go ahead and choose the file that we want. In this case, we're just going to go ahead and leave it as the default photo and click start fundraising. So that's gone ahead and created the fundraising page. And once again, we've been alerted here as the fundraiser that we need to go ahead and get that email, click that activation link for our page to be fully public at this URL that is noted here. We're going to go back to another example here. This is what the page would look like after it's been customized, after it's been created, after the individual has clicked that activation link, and then they come back to the site having logged in. From here, they're able to view what everybody else can view on the front end. They can see the title, they can see the image, they can see the amount raised, the number of supporters. In this case, we've got 2 donations totaling $300, which is 30% of the goal that we have. If we scroll down, we can see an example of the supporter section here with those 2 example donations that are made. This is a family affair, evidently, daddy fundraiser, mama fundraiser, which shows the total amount of a given donation, the title of the page to which it was donated, and then that personalized message that individual donors can leave on a peer-to-peer fundraising page. It's important to note that donors also have the option, if you choose to display it, to check a box that leaves them anonymous. If they've done that, then the amount of the donation and the date of the donation will appear, but none of the personal details. In this case, we've got 2 proud parents that are showing their names. If we scroll back up, we'll see that one thing that is new here is, for me as a logged in user who has this peer-to-peer fundraising page, I can click this Edit Fundraising Page button. What that does is take me to pretty much the same form that we saw for the creation of this page, but it allows me to edit these values, including the photo. So let's say I've decided that I'm feeling more ambitious, I'm going to increase my goal, and that photo that's there, that's my son on his first birthday. That was several months ago. I think I'd like to go ahead and choose a different photo. So I'll go ahead and choose that here. We'll click Upload. We'll see that that's been altered, and we'll save. And there you see the photo on the front end here. It's important to know that Soapbox in general is mobile friendly, and that applies to the peer-to-peer petitions pages as well. So if we go ahead and slim down our form, you'll notice that it moves to one column, and this is how it would appear on your mobile device. So even folks that come to donate to this supporters page on their phone will still have a good, engaging experience when they look to donate to your campaign. There we have an example of both a couple different fundraising pages that have been created, the process by which you can go through and create that fundraising page as a peer-to-peer fundraiser, and the process by which you can edit an existing fundraising page. We're going to jump into the back end of Soapbox now and give you a sense of what all this looks like from an administrator's perspective. Once again, if you've got questions that have come up as we've been walking through the front end portion, or now as we walk in through the back end portion, feel free to toss those in the chat window, and I'll do my best to respond there. Within the Soapbox Administrator, here we've got our control panel. This is the landing page that you see when you log in to Soapbox Engage. We're presented with the main apps that are available for our particular Engage instance, both in the main menu section, and then we also have the various pages here, most recently created or modified pages for those given apps down here in the main section of the page, where we can do a number of things. We can go ahead and customize the URL for these main pages. We can view them on the front end. We can jump right to an edit view. We can add a new donation page, or we can jump to the configuration of the donations app in general. Now, if we were to go ahead and click the View All button, we're taken to the Donations Manager. On this particular Soapbox Engage instance, we've got these 4 different donation pages. Any donation page can be made a peer-to-peer fundraising page. And the way you do that is quite simple. If you just go ahead and click through to the edit view of a given donation page, you'll notice that we've got a variety of different elements of this donations page that are broken out into various tabs where you can edit those different elements. To give a basic rundown here, we've got the title of the page, a few overarching settings that you can choose here, and then the intro and outro text for a given page. This is very, very boring. There is absolutely no page intro here because this is being used as this page that we saw right here, and we'll show you how you can edit this text here in a moment. If we had wanted to make this a full-fledged donation page, or just add more details so that folks could donate from the main landing page of our peer-to-peer campaign, we certainly would want to add in the page intro here. In this particular case, we opted not to do that. For the contact information form tab and the payment tab, these are the selections that you can make that will define what options show up for all of the peer-to-peer fundraising pages associated with this parent campaign. It will also define what options show up if you enable the donation form to appear on the main landing page for this campaign. In this case, we've kept things very simple. We've just got first name, last name, email address showing. We're not showing phone, we're not showing organization, and we're not offering the anonymous option. You could choose to show or even require a number of those, in addition to those fields that you can turn on or off that just exist out of the box. We could go ahead and alter some of the text that appears for those fields. We could include custom fields off here to the side. These are just text fields that will write to Salesforce as part of the sending of the detail of this donation to Salesforce. Or if you want to go further than just these custom text fields that you can alter the label of, you can choose to add additional custom Salesforce fields from the lead object that we write to as part of the Donations app, simply by clicking the Add Salesforce element and then choosing the field from the lead object that you want to include. Once you've selected that, you can alter the label of the field if you wish. You can give it a default value if you want, a tooltip. You can adjust the field size. You can even set it as required or hidden if for some reason you want to simply pass a value from the form to Salesforce as part of the submission of this particular donation. Moving on, we've got the payment option. Here's where you can define how the various donation amount and frequency options show up to the end user across all of the peer-to-peer forms. So we've got the ability to show both the recurring and one-time donation on the form simultaneously, or show that radio option that we've noted that allows the front-end user to select either one-time or monthly. We've got other options here for how those various elements are presented, including the ability to switch from showing radio buttons for those predefined donation amount selectors to touch buttons. We've got the ability to create the predefined amounts as you wish, and a number of other options that govern how those various items appear to the front-end user. We've got our dedication section that allows you to turn on or off the ability just in general to have a given donation made in honor of or in memory of someone, and then the ability to determine what fields within Soapbox show or don't show for those dedications. We've got our Messages tab that allows you to determine the details that are sent as part of a confirmation email to the donor. You can have an admin-specific email that goes to members of your staff and can include a whole host of merge fields, as we see here, just like we can with the donor-specific confirmation email. And then we have a thank you page that also has a number of merge fields associated with it. The Layout tab allows you to easily drag and drop whole sections of the form so that you can reorder them as you wish. In the case of peer-to-peer campaigns, that top portion that we saw for the image and the goal and progress will always appear at the top. Beyond that, though, you've got the ability through this drag and drop feature to adjust the other elements of the form as you see fit. So those are all common elements to any donation form within Soapbox, regardless of whether it's peer-to-peer. On the Fundraiser tab, this is where we've got the ability just through one simple toggle to denote whether or not this particular form should be available as a peer-to-peer fundraising form. In this case, we've enabled that. So that's why we're seeing that button here that says Start Fundraising. Further down, you'll see a couple of toggles that we'll talk more about here in a moment that relate to how this form interacts with Salesforce. But for some of the basics first, you can set the text of the fundraising page title here as a default. As with the fundraising appeal, the fundraising goal, you can specify a default photo, and then you can choose to turn on or off that request for supporters to identify the reason why they're supporting this peer-to-peer fundraising campaign just by selecting yes or no here. That governs whether or not this Share Your Thoughts section will appear. Going further down, we've got the ability to set an email that is sent to staff when a new fundraising page has been created through this fundraising campaign. So within that page, you're able, or within that email, you've got a couple of merge fields that are available to you so that you can identify the page title, which is helpful when we get to a couple steps from now and we see how you can manage some of the peer-to-peer fundraising pages that are created from within the administrator. And then the fundraising page URL, which will give you easy access to see the front-end version of that peer-to-peer page that was created. Before we touch on these items here for Salesforce campaigns, we're going to hop to the integration tab because that'll help give some context. Within any donation page, you've got the ability to turn on or off Salesforce integration, which is governing whether or not Soapbox will create a lead record and then have that lead record auto-converted to auto-converted within Salesforce. From there, we've got the ability to select which campaign in Salesforce you want to associate this page with. And I see a couple of questions that are coming in. Pardon me as I try and multitask here. In terms of, there's a question about how to access the merge codes. So those merge fields that we have here are hinted at by just mousing over the text here for, in this case, the email body. The easiest way to get a full list of these is by going to supports.picnet.net. And we've got an article there for merge fields for donations that show you the whole list of them. That's going to include both merge fields that are specific to peer-to-peer fundraising pages, but then all of them that are applicable across any donation form. Some of them are also specific to the administrator confirmation email, which allows you to include some additional information that's not really appropriate for the confirmation email to the fundraiser. But the whole list of those is accessible by going to supports.picnet.net and go into the donations app section where you'll be able to get an article for that. In terms of that integration portion again, one moment here while I multitask again and respond to an additional question. All right. So, so within the integration tab, when we select the campaign, that campaign option allows us to either choose an existing campaign in Salesforce or create a new one. From there, once a campaign is associated with this main donation form, the fundraiser tab gives you the option to determine how donations that come into Salesforce for this overarching peer-to-peer campaign should be associated when they're made on a particular fundraiser's donation page. So what this option here is, create child Salesforce campaign upon fundraising page activation, is a super powerful option that allows you to not just have the donation that is given to, say, my individual peer-to-peer fundraising campaign associated with the campaign that the donations app page is associated with, in this case, the Join Us peer-to-peer campaign, but it will create a sub or a child campaign of this Join Us peer-to-peer campaign that is associated just with me and my fundraising page that we saw here, that will make it very clear to you within Salesforce that this particular this particular supporter donated to Tim Forbes's peer-to-peer campaign. By virtue of the fact that it is a child of the Join Us peer-to-peer campaign, though, you have all the power that Salesforce gives to do roll-ups and calculations on your peer-to-peer campaign across the board. So even if you've got 100, 500, 1,000 different peer-to-peer fundraisers associated underneath this Join Us peer-to-peer campaign, you're able to see the entire totals for the number of donors, the amount donated across everybody on that main campaign in Salesforce, and then drill down to each child if you want to get further details. So that's a powerful option that you've got just in setting up your peer-to-peer donation form, and we'd highly recommend you selecting that. If you don't select the Create Child Salesforce campaign, then what will happen is the donations will just be associated with that main donation campaign in Salesforce, which, depending on your use case, might be an option you want to pursue, but far and away, we'd expect that you'd want to create child campaigns under that parent. So those are options that are available within an individual donation form for first enabling the peer-to-peer option and then customizing it in a variety of different ways. Beyond that, there are options available on the configuration level of the donations app. So you can get there by clicking configuration here. You can also get there by clicking that little gear on the control panel for donations, and that will open up the configuration view. There's a number of things that you can do within the donations configuration beyond just manage some peer-to-peer fundraising options. You see a few of those here. One of them that's probably most notable is setting a minimum value for donations given to any donation page on your site, peer-to-peer or otherwise. What we want to focus on, though, is this fundraiser tab. The first option here for registration page is one where you can select a menu item that is related to that registration option. So when someone goes through the process of creating a new fundraising page, that first view that they have to create a new account, that is has some ability to be customized and have the URL set based on the selection here. This 99% out of the time is going to be something that we at Soapbox set for you as part of the overall setup for your peer-to-peer option. So if that's not set, you can reach out to us through a ticketing support, but most of the time that'll be set. You won't need to worry about that. In the layout section, there's some ability to customize other elements of the overall peer-to-peer donation experience. One of those is what format or what type of display is shown for the goal and progress toward the goal on any given fundraising page or across all of the fundraising pages. We've got the ability to set that start fundraising button text. So if you don't like start fundraising, you could change that. Same with the description that we saw that shows up right here. That can be altered just right here in this parameter. And then we've got the ability to show or hide the payment section on that parent form. It's not shown here. That's why we've got just a very short form. You can choose to show or hide the supporters section on the parent page. If you show it, it will show the supporters for all of the peer-to-peer donation pages on that page. And then we've got the ability to turn on or off the supporters section across the individual peer-to-peer fundraising pages. Now, in addition to those elements that you can control about the front-end user experience, we've got this view for fundraising pages within the administrator. You can access this by going to Control Panel and then clicking the fundraising pages option. This gives you a list of all of the fundraising pages that have been created in your donations app. The clearest thing you can do here is to go ahead and publish or unpublish a given donation form. So if you've had some weird thing go on where somebody has decided that they're going to create a fundraising page that has elements to it that are not reflective of your organization and its mission, you can go ahead and choose to disable or unpublish that form. You can also go ahead and alter some of the content. So if somebody included, again, something inappropriate, or who knows, maybe they had a misspelling of something and just as a courtesy, you're going in to change it because they emailed you because for whatever reason, they're not able to do it themselves. You have access to that here. So you can go ahead and alter the appeal text, the goal, the page title, and then you can do a few different things related to the fundraising photo. You can revert to the default for this particular overarching peer-to-peer campaign, or you can just remove the photo in general. If you wish, you can also go ahead and select a given fundraising page and delete it. This would be most appropriate if you're just going through a testing process, you're creating some pages on the front end, and you want to just clean things out. That's available to you here. Clicking on the fundraising page title will open that in Edit View. Clicking on the donation form here will open the parent donation form itself, and then clicking the fundraiser name will open up the user account that's created for this fundraiser by virtue of going through the registration process. You can also go ahead and jump to the user manager and then make some a variety of different, or do a variety of different actions here if you wish. So you can block a given user by disabling them if you wish. That would probably be the most common thing if you've got somebody who, again, maybe is using the peer-to-peer fundraising campaign inappropriately. That's an option for you here. Just a few other notes that are kind of a collection of items that are not necessarily specific to peer-to-peer, but helpful for donations just in general as an app. You do have access within donations to the transactions view. Here you can search by donor name, email address, amount, transaction ID, subscription ID, so you can easily drill down and see a record of a given donation that was made. Here in this view, we're able to see them broken out by the main donation form for a parent peer-to-peer campaign. It would be within Salesforce that you'd be able to see the individual peer-to-peer fundraisers' progress on their campaign level. In addition to just these elements, it's also important to note that one other thing that can be captured on the front end of Soapbox and saved to Salesforce is if you're using UTM codes to track marketing efforts. UTM codes would be source codes that you can use within Google Analytics to track a campaign, a source, or medium, where let's say you're pushing out a Twitter campaign and you want to designate various UTM codes for those links that you share via Twitter so that you can identify them as coming from Twitter when somebody clicks on, let's say, a donation page. Those UTM codes can be captured in Soapbox and saved to Salesforce so that you're able to see what different sources of marketing effort, what various marketing efforts are most successful in generating donations through these campaigns. That is applicable not just to peer-to-peer, but just donations in general. The last thing to note is that peer-to-peer is something that, by virtue of the fact that it is an extension of our donations app, can be used with pretty much all of the payment processors with which we integrate. That includes Authorize.net, Braintree, CyberSource, IATS Payments, and PayPal Website Payments Pro. So each and every one of those different payment processors can be used with our donations app, and by virtue of that fact, with peer-to-peer fundraising as part of that donations app experience. That's the content that we've got for you here as part of this training webinar. We've got 2 whole minutes left in our 45 minutes. So if folks have additional questions that they'd like to toss in the chat, I'm all ears, or all eyes if you prefer. And feel free to do so now. Otherwise, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today for a walkthrough of Soapbox Engage in our peer-to-peer donations app. All right, going once, going twice. Excellent. All right, folks, thanks so much. Have a great end of your Wednesday, and definitely feel free to check out future events that we offer for these training webinars or spotlight webinars, like we've got tomorrow at 3 p.m. for the new tax law and smart fundraising in 2018. Thanks so much.